Ziyin hurried over in a flash, while Xiao Yin was holding the corpse of the Northern Dragon King. Her eyes were complicated as she glanced at the Northern Dragon King, whose face still contained a dark, ruthless, and ferocious appearance. She softly sighed. The ancient void dragon had been battered after so many years of internal strife. The disappearance of the Dragon Emperor back then had left the tribe in turmoil, a harrowing problem. 50 to 60% of those from the Northern Dragon Island have already been killed by the Northern Dragon King. This adds to the serious damage our ancient dragon tribe has already suffered. Fortunately, the Western and Southern Islands have not suffered as many losses. This time around, the 3 great Dragon Kings have all been killed. No one will be able to stop the tribe from being united. Ziyin glanced at the Dragon Island below, which was still covered in a bloody aura, as she softly analyzed the situation. Xiao Yin slowly nodded. Although the Eastern Dragon Island had been victorious, the price of this victory cost Ziyin far too much. As the Dragon Emperor, she put the needs of the tribe first. Regardless of whether it was the Eastern Dragon Island or the other 3 Dragon Islands, every person belonged to the ancient Void Dragon tribe. It is ultimately a good beginning. With you, a Dragon Emperor uniting the ancient Dragon clan, it is not impossible for the tribe to regain its glory. Xiao Yin was quiet for a moment. All he could do was attempt to comfort her. He knew that the strength of the ancient Void Dragon tribe was no longer what it had been in the past after experiencing the chaos from the 3 great Dragon Kings. But he could not damage Ziyin's confidence at this moment.
Ziyan softly sighed.
She was aware of the differences between the current ancient Void Dragon tribe and the one in the past. It should be known that the ancient Dragon tribe at its peak was comparable to a super faction like the Gu clan, but the experts of her tribe had either died or had scattered. It would be difficult for her to hold it together alone. There was just no telling how long it would take to recover to its peak. Haha, you should not remain depressed. You possess the legendary Dragon Phoenix Constitution. As long as you are given sufficient time, you will be able to surpass the previous Dragon Emperors. At that time, recovering the ancient Dragon tribe to its peak will no longer be empty words. Xiao Yin patted Ziyin's head and laughed. Ziyin smiled upon hearing these words. She braced her attention since Xiao Yin was right. Although the present situation of the ancient dragon tribe was not very good, she still possessed the legendary Dragon Phoenix bloodline. If she unleashed this bloodline to its limit, she would not be inferior to any dragon emperors. This included her missing father, whom she had never met, the previous dragon emperor. Thank you very much. If the both of you had not hurried over, a smile rose onto Ziyin's face as she replied with words of thanks. There is no need to say such courteous words to me. Xiao Yin shook his head. Suddenly, he waved the Northern Dragon King's corpse in his hand at Ziyin and asked, "Can you give this to me?" Huh. Ziyin was startled upon hearing this question. She was confused and asked, "What do you need his corpse for?" This fellow has an unbelievable constitution. He has even been tempered by the transforming dragon demon formation and is now frighteningly strong. If he can be refined into a puppet, it would be an extremely strong one. Xiao Yin hesitated and explained. The sky demon puppets he owned had been left in the star realm as guards. The ingredients that were used to refine them limited the growth of the sky demon puppet to the Dozun class. It was impossible for them to advance any further. A helper of that strength was completely useless to the current Xiao Yin. Hence, he had come up with the idea of refining the Northern Dragon King's corpse into a puppet. After all, the Northern Dragon King had already died and could only be used as trash. According to the rules, strong ancient dragons are normally buried within the dragon tomb. Ziyin knit her brows and glanced at Xiao Yan's helpless face. However, you have lent a hand to our tribe this time around, and it is only right for you to ask for a reward. Currently, those from the tribe hate this person. If I were to really bring him back, I don't think he would be allowed to be buried in the dragon tomb. You can take his body if you have a need for it. Ha ha, in that case, I will thank your majesty, the dragon emperor. Xiao Yin smiled and replied after listening to this girl's official response. Ziyan laughed in a delicate voice. The both of you should rest on the eastern dragon island for now. The 3 great dragon kings have already been killed. I will need to start the preparations for reorganizing the 4 great dragon islands. Xiao Yin smiled and nodded. There was still something he needed to do within this empty realm. In any case, he had no pressing matters at this moment. He would refine this puppet before leaving. In the future, the puppet would be a good helper when he fought against others. Ziyan chatted with Xiao Yin for a moment after he nodded. After which, she organized the experts within the tribe and then entered the northern dragon island after the bloody Do Chi scattered. They were going to find the tribe members who had luckily survived. After the 3 great dragon kings were killed, the ancient void dragon tribe, which had been dealing with serious internal strife, finally cleared all obstacles. The 4 great dragon islands ceased voicing any objections because of Ziyan's title as the Dragon Emperor. The Northern Dragon King had slaughtered the members of the tribe and had chilled the hearts of all the ancient void dragons. Naturally, no one was furious over his death. The Western and Southern Dragon Kings had both perished to the hands of the Northern Dragon King. This news would undoubtedly make the Northern Dragon King more hated. With the urging from so many factors, the unification of the 4 great dragon islands was unexpectedly smooth. The 4 great dragon islands that floated in the empty realm were merged together with the help of the combined might of many of the tribe experts. From this moment on, the ancient void dragon tribe could finally be considered reunified. In the future, there would no longer be 4 great dragon islands. There would only be 1 ancient dragon island. While the ancient void dragon tribe was extremely busy with the unification process, Xiao Yin and Kai Lin chose to remain on the dragon island. Xiao Yin rested for a couple of days and returned to his peak condition. This time around, the aim of his retreat was to refine a puppet using the body of the Northern Dragon King. The strength of the Northern Dragon King when he was alive had almost reached the 6th star of the Dosheng class. Xiao Yin had become excited because the physical body of this king was many times stronger than an ordinary 6-star Dosheng. This body was the best material to refine a puppet with. If it could be successfully refined, it would undoubtedly be a great help to Xiao Yin. This puppet would be extremely important to both him and the Sky Mansion Alliance. Xiao Yan's expression was solemn as he stood in a chamber. The air in front of him contained hundreds of objects that were flickering with mysterious glows. These glowing objects were the ingredients needed to refine a puppet. A top-quality body like the Northern Dragon King was extremely rare, so Xiao Yin naturally needed to use the best ingredients in order to refine this body. Xiao Yan's eyes carefully swept over those ingredients in front of him. He verified that everything was present before nodding with satisfaction. He had rummaged through the stores of the Dragon Island in order to collect these ingredients. Just thinking of the pained eyes of the warehouse guarding elder caused Xiao Yin to involuntarily laugh out loud. Xiao Yin only waved his hand after completing his check. A figure, which was many times stronger than an ordinary person, floated in front of him. This was the main ingredient required to refine the puppet, the body of the Northern Dragon King. The current Northern Dragon King's eyes were both tightly shut. His expression was pale and void of life. However, his body was still tense. It was impossible to leave behind a scar even if one hacked at it with a knife. The physical body of this Dragon King had already been strengthened to a frightening level. At the very least, Xiao Yin admitted he was no match for it. The ancient Void Dragon tribe was indeed blessed by a strong physical body. Xiao Yin swept his eyes over the Northern Dragon King's head. Those 3 faces still appeared a little ferocious at this moment. He involuntarily shook his head. The reason this person's physical body was so strong was because he had devoured the Western and Southern Dragon King's blood and flesh. Puff! Xiao widened his mouth after withdrawing his gaze. A cluster of pink flames was spat out of his mouth, after which they swelled with the wind and turned into a huge furnace in the air. Subsequently, he waved his hand and threw the body of the Northern Dragon King into the furnace. Sizzle, sizzle. The skin of the Northern Dragon King erupted with a sizzling sound the moment the Northern Dragon King's body entered the fire cauldron. Strands of blood continued to flow out before vanishing into nothing because of the high temperature. Xiao was expressionless as this blood disappeared. He had refined a puppet in the past and naturally understood that this was a tempering process. After being refined by his heavenly flame, the body of the Northern Dragon King would become even more terrifying. This tempering process might appear simple, but it lasted for a total of 10 days. Xiao did not rest during this period as he continued to use the purifying demonic lotus flame to grill the Northern Dragon King's body. After 10 days of grilling, the originally strong body of the Northern Dragon King seemed to have shrunk by 3 layers. Even though his body had shrank, it still appeared a little stronger than an ordinary person. Xiao calmly studied the Northern Dragon King's body, which seemed like black metal, from outside of the cauldron. Even though no do qi surrounded it, the body's glaring appearance was still incomparable. The blood within the body had been grilled until it has entered all the muscles and bones. This body will really be a perfect killing machine. Xiao smiled as he examined the black body, which radiated a pressure. He smiled, and even his black eyes contained a strange smile. He immediately waved his hand, and the purifying demonic lotus flame that had been wrapped around the body slowly paled.
Bang!
The moment that the purifying demonic lotus flame completely vanished, the Northern Dragon King suddenly opened his tightly shut eyes within the fire cauldron. A familiar pair of scarlet eyes belonging to the Northern Dragon King appeared, and a strange, sinister laugh followed. Xiao, thank you for helping this king complete this temperament. In order to thank you, I shall show you just how frightening this body is. TSK, if you need someone to blame, blame it on your arrogance in merely scattering this king's soul. Our ancient void dragon's body is our soul, and our soul is our body. The strong body that was covered in a black metal-like luster within the fire cauldron wildly laughed at the sky. A punch was thrown forward and caused the fire cauldron to collapse. His large hand reached for Xiao. The dead Northern Dragon King was revived. A sharp, frightening wind whistled through the chamber. The black metal-like fist of the Northern Dragon King was just like the sickle of a death god as it mercilessly shot toward Xiao head. This sudden, unexpected change would have caused anyone else to turn pale in shock, but the smile on the face of that skinny figure standing in front of the fire cauldron did not disappear. Just glanced at the Northern Dragon King, who had broken free from the cauldron, and extended his finger before pressing it down from some distance away.
Bang!
After Xiao pressed his finger down, the Northern Dragon King, who was rushing over, suddenly stiffened. Wave after wave of pink flames suddenly erupted from his body without warning. They wrapped around his body before invading from all possible entrances. They swiftly swarmed into the Northern Dragon King's head before wrapping around the lingering soul that was controlling his body. Bastard! What have you done to his king? The sudden, unexpected change caused the Northern Dragon King to feel shocked and furious. He let out a stern roar. Northern Dragon King, you have overestimated yourself by attempting to use a technique that hides your soul in front of me. Xiao merely smiled as the Northern Dragon King let out a shocked and furious roar. His spiritual strength was many times stronger than this Northern Dragon King. How could he make a simple mistake like missing a soul fragment? However, what had just occurred was what he had hoped would happen. Although a body refined by an ordinary refinement method became tougher and became immune to pain, a puppet was ultimately only a puppet. It did not possess its own fighting experience. Xiao Yin was naturally unwilling to use the Northern Dragon King's body to refine such a basic puppet. With his current strength, he would refine the best puppet he could since he wished to refine one. A perfect puppet not only required a metal-like body and an immunity to pain, it also required a great fighting experience and many killing methods. However, a puppet was normally controlled by its owner. If the owner ignored it, the puppet would become dull regardless of how strong it was. This type of puppet was far from being perfect. In order to resolve this weakness, one needed to construct the puppet with as much intelligence, or rather battle experience, as possible. The Northern Dragon King had fought in an uncountable number of battles throughout his life. He was an extremely experienced fighter. As long as his soul fragment was refined and merged with the puppet that would be formed would truly become a killing machine. Back then, Xiao Yin had shattered the soul of the Northern Dragon King, but he had left this soul fragment hidden within the Northern Dragon King's body alone. This soul fragment had inherited the viciousness of the Northern Dragon King. It had been hiding during this period of time, and had only rose to cause trouble after Xiao Yin had tempered the body until it was extremely strong. Unfortunately, this remnant soul was unaware that this was a trap to lure him out. Only by merging this soul fragment with this body would the puppet be perfect. "I have finally found you." Xiao Yin glanced at the Northern Dragon King, who had been surrounded by a pink flame, and faintly smiled. He could sense that the heavenly flame had surrounded the Northern Dragon King's remaining soul. "Don't." The Northern Dragon King seemed to have detected something at this moment. Shock flashed across his eyes. Before he could finish speaking, however, Xiao Yin had indifferently waved his hand. The purifying demonic lotus flame surged forward and swallowed the soul fragment like a tornado. Its terrifyingly high temperature refined it within a couple of minutes. After the Northern Dragon King's final soul fragment was refined, a somewhat illusory airflow suddenly appeared within the purifying demonic lotus flame, after which this airflow slowly drifted under Xiao Yan's control before merging with the head of the puppet. After the illusory flow entered the Northern Dragon King's head, the hollow eyes of the puppet gradually revealed a cold golden luster. This luster was set off by the puppet's black metal-like body. Looking from a distance, it appeared extremely majestic and emanated a great deterrence. Moreover, its originally somewhat stiff body gradually replaced. This loosening was not a form of weakness. Instead, it hid the puppet's frightening strength, which could erupt at a moment's notice, in a place where one's eyes could not reach, allowing the puppet to be more effective when it erupted and killed. Xiao Yin sighed in relief as he observed the black metal figure standing in front of him. He flicked his finger. A drop of essence blood shot out of his finger. Finally, it landed on the puppet's brow before transforming into a faint blood seal. A mental connection was also formed when Seal appeared. "In the future, you shall be called Northern King." That strong-looking black figure's face moved after hearing Xiao Yan's words. Finally, an emotionless hoarse voice was slowly emitted from its mouth. "Understood, Master." This puppet was different from those Sky Demon puppets in the past. The Sky Demon puppets did not possess an intelligence. They needed to be controlled by people when fighting others. However, this Northern King would automatically attack with just a thought from Xiao Yin. Moreover, it would not look sluggish like a regular puppet would when fighting against others. It appeared as though it was no different than if the Northern Dragon King had been revived. The current Northern King should be comparable to a 5-star Dosheng. Xiao Yin fondled his chin. His eyes continued to observe the Northern King. A puppet that could match a 5-star Dosheng. There was no telling just how much of a commotion such news would stir if it spread. However, Xiao still felt a little unsatisfied. The Northern Dragon King had vaguely reached the 6th star of the Doshang class, and with the unusually strong body of the Northern Dragon King, the limit of this puppet should be higher. A puppet is unable to unleash Do Qi. It completely relies on the strength of its physical body when attacking. With the current physical body of the Northern King, refining it with the purifying demonic lotus flame would not do much. In the past, the Earth Demon puppet had relied on absorbing lightning in order to raise its strength. Xiao had used a similar refinement method for this puppet and had refined some special ingredients into the Northern King's body. In other words, the current Northern King would possess the ability to absorb lightning. Moreover, the limit of this absorption was far from what those Sky Demon puppets in the past could compare with. Hence, the only thing he needed to consider was where he could find a sufficient lightning strength. If he were to rely on refining medicinal pills to attract pill lightning, Xiao would not be able to break the Northern King through to the 6th star of the Doshang class, even if he worked himself to death. Perhaps it is time to head to that place. Xiao mused for a moment before he softly laughed. He did not remain any longer as he turned around and walked out of the chamber. The Northern King followed close behind him like a shadow. Xiao immediately came across Kai Lin in the courtyard after exiting the quiet room. She also turned her head after detecting him. A stunned expression flashed across her eyes when she saw the Northern King behind Xiao. The body of the Northern Dragon King had undergone a drastic change after the purifying demonic lotus flame had refined it for over 10 days. With its black metallic-like body, no one would recognize it as the infamous Northern Dragon King of the ancient Void Dragon tribe with just a glance. The refinement was a success? Xiao nodded. He did not remain for long. After briefly explaining the situation to Kai Lin, he led the Northern King into the air and swiftly rushed into the empty realm outside of the Dragon Island. Rumble! The low and deep roar of thunder echoed in the distance within the dark, empty realm. If one swept one's eyes around, one would find a glowing silver light near the edge of the darkness where huge thunderbolts crazily whistled by like huge dragons. Xiao body remained suspended in the realm. His eyes swept over the extremely huge lightning pool in front of him. This place was where he had refined the Sky Demon puppets back then, and also where he had met the headmaster of the Inner Academy, Meng Tianqi from the Lei clan, for the first time. At that time, Meng Tianqi had appeared extremely miserable since he was being chased by those strange black lightning beings. At that time, Xiao only knew that those black lightnings were terrifying and that he could not touch them. This time around, his target were those black lightning beings, who had forced Meng Tianqi to flee in horror back then. He needed to rely on the lightning strength of this lightning pool in order to raise the strength of the Northern King to a truly perfect level. Let's go. His arc-black pupils observed the thunderbolts surging within the lightning pool. Xiao faintly smiled as his body took the lead to fly forward. The Northern King's black body followed close behind him. Back then, Xiao had needed to be extremely careful when he had entered the lightning pool of the empty realm. He had been afraid of attracting tens of thousands of lightning strikes at the same time, but now he appeared quite at ease in this strange region that was filled with a frightening strength. His body steadily floated through the lightning pool. The wildly flashing thunderbolts would suddenly come to a halt when they were still hundreds of feet from Xiao before turning tail and running with some panic. They were able to detect a relatively frightening existence within the somewhat strong body. Xiao did not pause along the way. He rushed to the deepest part of the lightning pool. With the purifying demonic lotus flame protecting his body, the lightning strength did not dare to charge forward. From the looks of it, this third-ranked heavenly flame did live up to its reputation. The lightning pool of the empty realm was extremely vast, but with Xiao speed, he had reached the deepest part within less than 10 minutes. No wonder even Headmaster Meng Tianqi could only turn around and flee back then. Xiao Yin glanced at his dim surroundings after reaching the deep regions. He then shifted his eyes to examine a black lightning cluster, which appeared like huge dragon as it slowly wiggled within the darkness. Even with his current strength, his expression involuntarily became grave. The grave expression lasted for a moment before Xiao Yin slowly sighed. Some joy rose onto his face. If the Northern King absorbed this lightning, it would be able to reach a perfect level. At that time, it could even fight against an elite 6-star Dosheng. This kind of help would be very useful to Xiao Yin.